What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast, episode 16. Woo, we're here. It's draft week, man.
Hell yeah.
Draft week. I'm excited. I don't know. How about you?
Oh, I can't wait. So many exciting selections that I'm hoping for. Obviously, with my own team, the Jets, I'm sure they'll screw it up somehow.
They always do, right?
But, yeah, exactly. But also, obviously, fantasy implications. So.
Yeah. No, we're super excited for draft day coming your way. We're actually going to live stream it. Hopefully, Instagram Live, TikTok Live, all those things. So, you're watching this the day before the draft. So, if you're around 8 p.m., you want to, hop on TikTok Live or Instagram Live with us, come hang out while we watch some picks and talk some ball, right? Make sure that you are following us on all of our socials, Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, YouTube at Fourth and Fantasy. Please make sure you give us a like, follow on our socials, and leave us a comment because you never know, you might see yourself on the show. Going to shout out again one more time. We're working with Fantasy Trading Room and Dynasty Trading Room, two YouTube channels that, we talk fantasy football, but we just put out a recent video about Dynasty Cornerstones. Video's actually doing pretty well, but, if you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out. It'll give you a little edge on your opponents. But, yeah, you'll see us weekly. We'll probably shout that out and, check out those videos on their YouTube channel.
We're doing an article next, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think the next thing we're doing is an ararticle on their
reading
website.
in for the week.
Absolutely. And then, we'll probably be back with some videos, but definitely a good time. Quick question of the day, Wu, I have for you. In the spirit of draft season, draft day coming up, I called this quick question, post-draft buy. Who is a player that you would like to buy if their team does not invest in their position during the draft?
So this is not so much a buy. I mean, it is a buy scenario, but not for me personally because I already have this player. So this is personal for me. Isaiah Pacheco, Kansas City, please don't draft a running back. I beg. We've talked so much about how deep this running back class is. Yes. And I think the Chiefs they'll be in a spot to be looking for a running back. I hope they just focus on their offensive line. Yeah. But if Kansas City comes out of this draft without one of these elite running backs, I think Pacheco goes right back to what he was doing before he got hurt.
My question for you, when I saw you put this in, I was just thinking about this. Where would you be concerned? Like, obviously, if they take a running back day one, like night one, first round, we're terrified.
Yep.
Day two and rounds 2 or 3, are you nervous?
Listen, how deep? If they end up with a Quinshon Judkins or a Caleb Johnson, that's concerning for me. Even even
Scatterbo, you know what I mean?
Scatterbo could be concerning. Devin Neal concerns me. Dylan Sampson concerns me. There's just too many names to where I'm like, okay, this guy could be a dude. And last year, Kareem Hunt. They bring back Kareem Hunt from the dead. Yep. And even when Pacheco comes back from injury, sure, they were trying to work him in and get him back on his feet, but Kareem Hunt was still getting goal line touches. I'm like, what are we doing?
That is true. That's true. Yeah. So I guess maybe day 3 is what we're looking at. If it's around 4, 5, 6 or, something like that, then maybe you feel a little bit better with Pacheco.
Yeah. But I'm just really hoping that Kareem Hunt is his only competition because he should win that battle 11 times out of 10. But if they bring in a young guy, I'm scared. Yeah.
I have 2. First one I'm going to get out of the way is Najee Harris. Signed a basically a $5 million deal with the Chargers. It's enough money for him to potentially be the running back, their RB1, but I could also see them investing in a change of pace kind of back. I wouldn't be scared, and I'd be willing to buy in on Najee if they take a receiving back like a DJ Giddens or Baishal Tutin, you know what I mean, one of those guys later on. But if they invest in Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson, I'm out, all out. And the inverse, I guess, is the same for this player, is Chase Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Chase Brown I see as, he was a 5th-round pick, has great hands in the receiving game, but if they get somebody, who runs between the tackles and takes those first and second down work away from him, if they were to take Caleb Johnson, or Scatterbo is a good candidate for here too. If they take either of those archetype of players. In Cincinnati, I think Chase Brown you have to move down your list and kind of be out on.
Yeah, Chase Brown can be scary because they only used a 5th-round pick on him, so the draft capital just isn't there. So yeah, like you said, if they take it in between the tackles guy, that's just touches gone for Chase Brown.
Absolutely. So we'll see how that goes. But we're gonna move into. We only have 2 quick pieces of NFL news. We'll see how much this is, but I know Wu's ready to talk about this one.
Steaming.
Obviously we're recording this on April 17th, so the news actually just broke today. But we're gonna talk about Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show, and he's still unsure about his future, and also rips the Jets for his exit. Quote he left or gave to Pat McAfee was, quote, "I'm open to anything and attached to nothing." Rodgers also talked about his time in New York when he was talking with Aaron Glenn, the new head coach of the New York Jets. Said he took time out of his day to fly out to New York, or money out of his pocket to meet with Aaron Glenn to talk about the future. And then Glenn left the room, came back with the GM, asked if he really wanted to play football. Rodgers said that he did, and then Glenn had just ultimately said they're going in, another direction. I don't know. How does this hit you?
So this news comes out this afternoon. I'm at work, and I'm just the whole afternoon. I knew we were recording later in the day, so the whole afternoon I was just planning this part out in my head because
I'm ready.
Aaron Rodgers, congratulations! You are a part of the news in another offseason. Once again, this is probably the 4th or 5th time that you have made yourself one of the biggest stories in the offseason. First off, Aaron, I'm not even gonna. You get one name, and you're not getting the full name. Aaron, you chose the New York Jets. The New York Jets did not choose you. Sure, it was mutual that they wanted you. They needed a quarterback. But you ultimately chose the New York Jets. In the last 10 years, what promising things have you seen from the New York Jets where you're like, okay, yeah, I want to go to that team? Yeah, okay, yeah. That's a whole other story. But what you chose the Jets, what did you see over the last 10 years that was like, yeah, I can't wait to play for the New York Jets, man. This is going to be an awesome time. Like, okay, so that's strike number 1. 2, you love going on the Pat McAfee show to speak your mind.
Are they boys or something?
I guess so. I hate that relationship so much. I hated it during the season. It was just so frustrating. But then you come out and you're complaining about how this whole situation goes down. First off, you're saying, "Oh, I flew on my own dime to New York." Sorry, like how many millions of dollars do you have? Like
too many to count.
So you probably flew on your private jet. Like what are you complaining about? Then you meet with Glenn, and over the last 2 years, like. Sure, you get hurt in the first year with the Jets. Last year was just a disaster after week 3. You played all right, but nothing ever clicked. And, you're sitting here saying, like, why would they not bring me back? This is a whole new regime. They need to
they're not
start
tied
fresh.
to him at all.
They're not tied to him at all. Literally, the GM is gone. The head coach is gone. The offensive coordinator is gone. Which is another thing is, you're going to complain about the Jets. You brought all the pieces that you wanted. Yes. You wanted Nathaniel Hackett, who loses his play calling ability. You wanted Devontae Adams. You wanted Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard couldn't catch a pass if it hit him in the face. So it's just Aaron Rodgers, you just love to be in the news for no reason. You've done it again. Congratulations.
Yeah.
See you never.
I wouldn't say see you never. I still think he finds a way to make himself relevant, whether that's his time is running out. It seems like he only has one option right now, and it is going to Pittsburgh. But with what we're going to be talking about today, I don't know if Pittsburgh's going to wait around for him anymore.
Why would you?
Why would you is right.
Why would you satisfy him?
Right. And then the only other piece of news that we wanted to talk about, Browns GM says Travis Hunter his value is quote like Ohtani.
Kind of
interesting. Kind of is interesting. You know what I mean?
Not the same magnitude.
No, but I am so interested to see where he goes and what he ends up doing in the NFL. Just as a player standpoint, but then overall, like fantasy, me being selfish, I definitely want him to just only play receiver.
Right.
But it's just, I don't know, it's just not looking that way. And the other part, too, he had said earlier in the week is that if he has to make a choice between DB and wide receiver and he can't play both ways, he'll quit football, which is childish.
It's a crazy thing to say.
But again, we're talking about, rookies who are like 20, 21 years old, and, they probably don't know fully, what they're truly saying, but I don't know.
Is it bad? I kind of respect that.
I get it. You know what I mean? I also, I put some respect on it too.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, what are you going to do?
He's
You
not
know what I
actually
mean?
gonna
Like, what are you
quit.
going to do?
Yeah,
You're going
he's
to walk
not-
away
yeah.
and not make millions of dollars and be like a marquee player in
Yeah.
the NFL? Like, I think he's doing it as a scare tactic, and we'll see if someone buys it. I don't think anyone buys it.
No, I just really hope whatever team he does go to, they at least let him try.
Yeah.
Let him try. And if you think he's going to be wrong, or prove to yourself that you are wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other thing is would you rather him play, 5 to 6 years both ways full time, or would you rather him play 8 to 9 years at one position and be great at that position?
But it's just like one of these things. Like, no, we've never seen this before. Someone so, willing to do it on both sides of the ball in the NFL.
That's
like,
true.
When Ohtani came over to the MLB, like, it was this whole crazy thing that someone was pitching and hitting, and obviously he's lived up to expectations and surpassed that.
Yep.
So I don't know, why not give the kid a chance?
I get it. I get it.
I understand the reason to be concerned as an NFL GM because
Right.
he's probably going to be the second pick.
I was gonna say, because at the end of the day, it's your livelihood as the GM, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you allow him to do this, and then he gets hurt, and it's like, okay, this guy that we drafted with a top 5 pick isn't playing like that. It looks bad on you.
I get both sides. I just want to see him try it so bad.
Yeah. All right. We're going to get into the main topic of the show. So like we were talking about, you're getting this the day before the draft, and we wanted to give you some draft day predictions. So how Wu and I have this set up is we are going to go through each position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I think we put about 5 players. Some have a little bit more, in each category. And then we're going to kind of put through, where we think they're going to go. Obviously, some are more obvious than others, of course. Others, Wu and I have conflicting opinions, and those are the ones that I'm interested to see. Yep. But that's how we're going to go, right? We'll talk about whether we see them as first round talent, or day 1, day 2, or day 3 talent, going forward. So let's go, man.
Let's do it.
I'm ready. We're gonna kick it off with quarterbacks. We're gonna get the obvious one out of the way.
The layup.
Cam Ward. Me and Wu both have him going to Tennessee. I think it's a foregone conclusion now that he's the number 1 overall pick. He's going to Tennessee. Did you see him when he was streaming last night?
Loved it. I love that move. I love that. I'm
so
in on that.
If you haven't seen it, Cam Ward was streaming Fortnite, and people were asking him questions. They were like, who's the best wide receiver or best running back in the league? And he was like, I'm thinking it's Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears.
Yep.
And then I think they were asking something about wide receiver.
I think they asked, like, what's your top 5 receivers in the league or something like
and
that.
Calvin Ridley was number 1 or something. Yeah. So he knows.
And Burks was number 4.
Yes. Yeah. So he knows exactly who, where he's going, and, let's see, so what are your expectations for Ward then, rookie season in Tennessee?
I'll give you my expectations in a second, but first I just want to pat myself on the back real quick. Remember that 2-3 week stretch where it was Abdul Carter's going number 1, and I sat right at this desk and I said, it's going to be Cam Ward.
You do?
And I stood on that. So I just want to do that real quick. But my expectations for Cam Ward, I'm really excited to see what he can do. Out of all the quarterbacks, he's definitely someone who can elevate a weaker roster, which is kind of what you see in Tennessee. They have usable weapons. I still think Calvin Ridley's got a couple good seasons in him. I really like Tony Pollard and what he can do for you running the ball in the passing game. Tajay Spears is a nice highlight piece for him. This is going to be a big year for oh my God, what's the Titans coach name?
Callahan. Brian Callahan.
Yep. It's going to be a big year for Brian Callahan to see if that was the right move for Tennessee. What I hope doesn't happen is Cam Ward struggles in his first year, and then they make the coaching change, and now all of a sudden we're back to a situation like
you're in limbo, right?
Exactly, like a Jalen Hurts where he's getting a new offensive coordinator every year. Obviously, It hasn't been that big of a deal, but this is the one thing I plead to the Tennessee Titans is when you draft this guy because we all know you're going to. Just say he's your starter. Yeah. Don't play coy and be like, oh, Levis was
yeah, let's not just say oh, they're gonna battle it out between Levis and Ward. No, give him all the reps. Let him learn as much as he can.
Yes.
You know what I mean, and get him ready for week 1. Don't do this stupid crap of we're gonna do a camp battle and all that. Just make him your starter and just move forward.
And we need to bring back patience for rookie quarterback because
Yes.
Mahomes has ruined that for prospects.
Which is crazy though, because Mahomes sat his entire first year. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like it's nuts to me.
We just need to bring back the patience piece. Let these guys learn. Like, give them a chance. Like,
Yes.
there's not a lot of quarterbacks who go to Tennessee and make them a playoff team right now.
Correct.
So
Correct. Next one we have is Shedeur Sanders. I'm gonna go. I'll go with mine first. So I actually have him going to New Orleans at 9, and I should have. You know what? I should have put this in the news and notes, but there was some news that came out about Derek Carr's shoulder injury. You know, obviously,
really weird situation.
it is such a weird situation. But like, Carr was battling injuries. You know, I think he hurt the shoulder during the year, along with like a head injury and stuff like that. So like, Carr was like banged up.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the year, but from what's coming out right now, though, is that his shoulder is still bothering him, and it's his throwing shoulder too.
Yep.
And like it's the talk is like he might not even be ready for week 1, which is nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts, especially because I will hand up, you know, take accountability. I think I said in our free agent episode there was they could have cut Derek Carr and save a bunch of money. I was dead wrong. It's actually it was actually the complete opposite. They're so tied to Derek Carr that like they can't make any moves.
Well, what I heard today, Diana Rossini was talking about it, is like the timing of this whole thing is so weird because they just like restructured his contract, and it's so like Derek Carr friendly, and now he's gonna come out and say that his shoulder is bothering him. Like,
Correct.
I don't think the team knew.
Right. So with all that being said, I think with this being said, and they're not going to take the chance on Carr being ready, I think they go and take Shedeur. I don't see Shedeur being drafted in the first 8 picks. I think there are other needs for other teams, whether it's defense, whether it's tackle, whether it's edge or anything like that. So I think Shedeur falls to them at 9. And honestly, I kind of like the pick. You know, you match Shedeur with Kellen Moore. You have Kamara as a friendly, face out of the backfield, on top of, Olave, if Olave just, can stay healthy, and some receiving pieces. It makes it interesting for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't hate the New Orleans spot. I've seen that a lot recently. It's starting to gain some steam, and it does make sense, especially with this whole Derek Carr situation.
Absolutely. So where do you have Shedeur going?
I got Cleveland, but not with the second pick. I think they trade back into the first round. I'll talk about it more later, but I think they go with someone else at 2, and then they come back in and get Shedeur Sanders. I'll talk about the other piece later. But yeah. So I think that because they're sitting at the beginning of the second round.
So you think it's a trade back into the first round to take him?
I do.
Okay.
And it's because of who I think they're going to take it to.
Oh yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down. So,
okay.
I mean, we'll see. Like, obviously, we talked about Shedeur. I'm just pulling up my notes on him. When we talked about him in our QB episode, right? Like, the dude is tough as nails. He has great pocket presence, and he's mobile in the pocket. Sure, his rushing stats didn't say so.
Well, it's because the college
but
rushing.
the way it's so dumb. But I think he's he's someone who can manage an offense well, and I think someone like like a Kevin Stefanski offense. I think we talked about this during our episode. Is that's almost like a plug and play kind of system where it's hand the ball off to a strong running back, and then work play action to your receivers down the field. So I like the fit. I think that could work really well.
Yeah, and I think just at the end of the day, anything is better than whatever Deshaun Watson can give you these days.
Oh yeah.
Like I think Cleveland is in such a spot where they need to get a quarterback from this draft.
If they don't. If they don't go with the trade up or taking a quarterback in the second round, the name I've heard floating around is Kirk Cousins.
Oh God.
Yeah, I've heard that on some other podcasts that essentially there's a deal in place right now for Cousins to go to Cleveland.
Atlanta has to trade him, right?
Yes, they can't cut him. They have to trade him. But from what I was hearing from another podcaster's influence or intellect is that the deal is already in place, and that come draft day we may see Kirk Cousins move from Atlanta to Cleveland. But that might be an interesting piece too.
Okay.
But anyways, we roll. Next one we have is Jackson Dart. Where do you have Jackson Dart going?
I got him going to Pittsburgh, which they have the 21st pick. I think Pittsburgh is definitely in a spot where they need a quarterback. The Aaron Rodgers thing is, I think that's over and done with. I I've seen Dart moving up the board like a lot.
Yeah.
Like I've even seen some mocks with him going to New Orleans at 9.
Listen, somebody sat here and said that 3 quarterbacks might go in the first round.
No, you absolutely did. And Dart has gained a lot of steam. I just think Pittsburgh, they need to start looking towards the future. I think if they bring in a veteran bridge quarterback, it's just going to be more of the same, where they go 10-7, make the playoffs, and lose in the first round. And then, it's kind of a rinse and repeat going into the next offseason. So I think they need to bring in some kind of future plan, and I think Dart's the way to go.
Yeah. I guess he works really well in Pittsburgh, but my only question is, will they allow him to just let it rip? Like, watching Dart, like, and watching back on his film, like, I am so bullish on this guy. Like, I think he could be really well if someone is just like, go rip. You know what I mean?
He's got weapons now.
And he's got
Pickens and Metcalf.
I was going to say, but I don't think that's how Tomlin likes to roll. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
I don't think Tomlin is going to, obviously there were a couple times with Russ where like he let it happen because it was a shootout game. But I don't think the initial plan is like, let's just go throw the ball like 25, 30 times a game. You know what I mean? And I think that's where, you see Dart really excel, you know what I mean, is where he's able to just let him cook and just, dart across, just throw darts across the field to different players. You know what I mean?
I get that. And, you're right. Like the whole Tomlin thing, he's not just going to let somebody rip it 35 times a game. This is not me saying Mike Tomlin's a bad coach. I think he's a phenomenal coach.
Yeah.
Year in and year out, he takes mediocre rosters and makes them over a 500 team. They make the playoffs. But at this point in his career, can he sit here and say, yeah, we went 10-7 and lost in the first round again? Like, how many times are we going to allow that to happen before, until we start changing the narrative?
Like, it's the Marvin Lewis effect. When Marvin Lewis was the head coach in Cincinnati, they were always like 8-8, 10-6, making the playoffs, and then losing in the first round. And then eventually Cincinnati got tired of it and was just like, see ya. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to get stuck in the middle. We're either going to tank and suck, or we're going to, try to upgrade, the coach. And it's really hard to upgrade a coach in, someone like Mike Tomlin. But I could see that happening.
And that's the thing is, like, when they do go 10-7 every year and then lose in the first round of the playoffs, they're picking in the second, third of the draft, and they're just not 20s. In a spot where they can really elevate the roster again to try and get better, and then they just keep ending up in the same spot every year. So I get Mike Tomlin resting on his morals and doing the same thing year in, year out, and it works, but it's not to that next level where you can kind of like be appreciative of what he just did, because it's just the same thing over and over.
Yeah, I like the pick. My pick I had was Cleveland. I also am in the same boat as you. I don't think they take Dart at 2, but I just want to make it known that Cleveland has the first pick of the second round, and a lot of times teams use that pick, and like that's a coveted pick. Like, obviously, we talk about the 32 picks that are taken in day one, but like that first pick of the second round is used in a lot of deals, and it's a very coveted thing. So they could use that piece, trade back in. I think what I had saw in some mocks was them actually trading with Pittsburgh, coming back in, taking Pittsburgh's spot at 21, and then drafting Dart there.
Okay.
So, back to what I was saying about Dart, flashed all over the place at Ole Miss, 4,200 passing yards, 29 touchdowns. He was mobile, and when you watch his film compared to, maybe not Ward, but compared to like Shador, he has such a live arm, can make throws down the field, put them all over the place. And I think that is, a special talent where, people are saying like, yes, Shador is this great talent and he's this game manager, but like, is Shador going to be able to go out and win you games? I don't know. Obviously we have to wait and see them play, but I'd rather take the shot on someone like Jackson Dart, who I know is going to push the ball down the field and try to make plays, than someone who's just going to game manage me up the field,
right.
So, next quarterback, or actually our last quarterback that we have on the board is Jalen Milroe, quarterback from Alabama. I have Jalen Milroe. I'm sticking with what I had in our rookie episode. I think Milroe is going to go to the New York Giants. And I'm doing this solely on the fact that I think Daboll sees him closer to Allen than he is like Anthony Richardson. And obviously Dayball was in, Buffalo with Josh Allen, and, he has, problems with his accuracy. But Milroe isn't, a terrible passer, I wouldn't say terrible, but an inexperienced passer like Anthony Richardson. He actually, had the second best yards per average in the class. Obviously he had lower passing yards, but he was such a dynamic runner at Alabama with 12 rushing touchdowns. You can, if you're such a great offensive coordinator like I believe Brian Daboll is,
I agree.
you can turn this guy into a legitimate QB
it's going to be a project. He's
a project, and that's why what I think you do, and I don't mean this seriously, but maybe you do. You just put Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson in the QB room. You put up a two-way glass mirror where he cannot see them, and he sits on the other side and he watches film and does not interact with them at all.
I'm totally okay with that.
But he's a one, like you said, he's a project. But I think he, if goes to the right place, could be a solid NFL quarterback, in 1 to 2 years time.
Yeah, the Giants pick, it's definitely gaining a lot of steam because of something I saw recently. He was invited to be in the draft room for round 1. So he's gonna be in attendance round 1.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. Which is so the team I have, in our notes, I have the Rams, but they don't have a pick until the 3rd round. They don't, or they have their 1st round pick, but they don't have their 2nd round pick.
That's interesting.
So because of this news, I've seen the Giants a lot. I do think that is a possible landing spot. Depending on who if let's say Cleveland trades that 1st pick in the 2nd round to try and move back into the 1st, whatever that team is, depending I guess it could be the Rams at 26, depending on where Cleveland moves up, or if it's Pittsburgh that like you just said, where Cleveland takes their pick for Dart. But another team I want to highlight for Jalen Milroe is going to be Vegas. They have the 37th pick, so they're 5th in the 2nd round. They give Geno the extension, so this gives Milroe some time to sit back and learn. I think Geno Smith's a great quarterback to learn from, specifically because of his journey that he's taken through the NFL. I think there's so much valuable information there. I really like Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator. It'll be interesting to see him back in the NFL. And obviously, Brady's an owner. That's a great guy to learn from. So
100%. We're going to move into running backs. First one we got to talk about the beast that is Ashton Jeanty. I have Ashton Jeanty going to the Chicago Bears. I think with the way I was doing some homework and I was doing some mock drafts, I think, what I was seeing a lot of is, I think, Vegas at 6, because obviously that's the most popular one right now. Yeah. I think especially the key here is Chip Kelly being the offensive coordinator, and they have 2 chances to take a shot on the Ohio State guys that already knows the system, and it's just essentially a plug and play guy. I think they go in a different direction, whether it's corner, whether it's tackle. I don't know entirely, but that is the only threat to Ashton Jeanty not going to Chicago is Vegas, in my opinion. And I think he goes to Chicago, and now Ben Johnson has all of these weapons. And Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze. Now you add Jeanty to it. You have Swift out of the backfield. Chicago then looks like a offense you want to target in redraft leagues in the next season if that goes down. Because if that goes down and they're just taking, shots down the field, or they're just moving the ball down the field with Jeanty. Those are pieces that I want to have in fantasy football. But that's my take, Wu. I don't know, who do you have him going to?
I have him going to Vegas at 6. It's such a popular pick. Actually, before I get into this, did you see the letter he wrote to all the NFL GMs?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that was such a baller move. I don't remember what the first part of it was, but basically he ended it with saying, we play tackle football. Why don't you draft a guy that breaks tackles or something along those lines? That's such a baller move. I'm so blessed that the 2 of us are able to draft him one-on-one in one league. I just want a taste of him in one league. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. As long as I can have Ashton Jeanty on my roster and just sit there and admire him on my roster. Yeah. I can't wait to see what this dude does, because it's gonna be insane. But yeah, I have him going to Vegas at 6. I like the Chicago pick as well. if he doesn't go to Vegas, I think that's absolutely where he goes. There was some like rumors with the Jets wanting him at 7. I don't think that's a possibility. And the other teams around there, I don't see him being taken there.
I don't think it just doesn't work. I mean,
Carolina doesn't make sense. They just gave Chuba all
Jacksonville,
that money.
maybe if you want to just blow up the whole ETN Bigsby thing.
I think there's just other guys that they would rather have.
Correct.
But yeah, I love Genty to Vegas. Because like I don't even know what the running back room looks like in Vegas. Like,
I'll pull it up for you. I was just
atrocious.
looking at it.
Like, is it still like Zamir White?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'll give you the names. Actually, first top on the list, Raheem Mostert.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, they're taking Genty just because of that.
And then Zamir White, some dude named Dylan Laube.
Never heard of him.
Yep. And Isaiah Spiller, former Charger.
So there you go. You listen to that depth chart. Ashton Genty, welcome to Vegas.
Yeah. We'll see. We will see. Next one we have is my number 2 overall prospect, my stud, Omarion Hampton. You and we have him going to the same place as the Denver Broncos.
I think it makes too much sense.
I think if he doesn't go to Denver, he goes to Pittsburgh, I think, at 21, because Denver's at 20, Pittsburgh's at 21. I think
all 3 of those teams right there, I could see him.
Correct. Going. I just don't see him falling to 22 for the Chargers. And really, with the move that they made for Najee Harris, it kind of, boxes them out of it because the skill set is the same. But listen, this dude is the real deal. Like, no matter where he goes, I think he's the true number 2 prospect, in dynasty rookie drafts. We talked about it before, 1,660 yards, his last year at UNC, 5.9 yards per carry. The dude is powerful as all heck, can break through all kinds of tackles. He has great vision, has great burst, and the contact balance is insane. Like, I think Omarion Hampton will do damage in the NFL. He's your prototypical guy. He is, I don't have his height and weight, but I remember us talking about it, and it was like he's the prototypical running back in the NFL.
Yeah. I like you said, I also have Hampton going to Denver. I think the pick makes way too much sense. There aren't a lot of teams ahead of them that I think would, be willing to take him. He's easily a 3-down guy for me in the NFL.
Yep.
And Denver is in desperate need, just like Vegas, for a running back. So again, I just think the pick makes way too much sense. Add another weapon to your offense. You believe in Bo Nix after the season he just gave you. So why not, bolster that offense up? Being a 3-down guy, dealing with hits isn't an issue. He loves the contact. If anything, he creates it for himself. Like, he wants to wear you down. So I'm all in on that. Yep. He definitely goes in the first round for sure.
Oh, he definitely does. Moving on to the next one. This is I think is an interesting, where does he kind of go, is Travion Henderson.
Yep.
We talked about, obviously, I think it's maybe Hampton's not like solidified. I'd probably say he's like 80% like solidified in the first round. Genty is, maybe Hampton now, and the buzz that Henderson has been getting over the past couple of weeks of sneaking into the first round, having that Jahmyr Gibbs skill set that people want to be in on. I actually made a mistake in the doc. I had him going to Chicago. That was before I had Genty going there. But if Genty does not go to Chicago, I think Travion Henderson would be a good pick for them. But I think he goes to Minnesota. I think his skill set
would be nice with Jones.
Would be nice with Jones, right? Jones is obviously getting older. Henderson is the more explosive back that you can catch out of the backfield. Not to say that Jones can't, right? Same kind of thing with Montgomery and Gibbs. Like, Montgomery can definitely catch the ball, but you transition Jones into that in between the tackles kind of guy, and you have Henderson on the field to catch dump offs from JJ McCarthy. I think that's a great piece to add in Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree. So would you have him in the first round, or?
I do.
So at 24?
Yeah, I think at 24 it would be where they go. That with Minnesota, that's where I think, because I don't think Minnesota would take a guy and then draft or trade back into the first round.
Yeah, because they don't have their second that goes to Buffalo.
Right. So I would think that they would take him at 24.
Nah, I wouldn't be mad at that.
Yeah. Where do you have Henderson going?
I got him going to Dallas, but a little bit later in the second round.
So you don't think he's a first round pick?
I don't think he's a first round pick.
Gotcha.
I mean, let me look at the order real quick. Like, I'm gonna Genty and Hampton are gone. I don't let's say Hampton goes to Denver. Like, I don't know if Pittsburgh is jumping at the bullet for Travion Henderson right there.
Yeah.
The Chargers, with Najee, it would make sense, but I think I just don't know.
I don't think they would do that too. They have other holes. What about this? What if I throw this scenario at you? Obviously, I didn't have this, but let's say
Kansas City.
No, Genty goes to 6 at Vegas.
Yep.
Hampton goes to 12 with Dallas in the first round.
Yeah, I mean that changes everything for sure.
And then it leaves it open, right?
Denver, you have to take them. Like if Denver doesn't take a running back, I'll actually be mad at them.
Yes,
I think that's such a missed
I was going to say
opportunity.
there are a few places where like, where any of these running backs are going to go, they're just going to be auto like first round picks. Like Denver's definitely one of them. Chicago's one of them. We talk about LA all the time. I just please take a running back.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at the order, although I think this has to be offensive tackle for them, but Kansas City at 31, like that would be my scenario where I think Travion Henderson could go in the first round.
Yeah,
and he could finally be like that Clyde Edwards-Helaire piece that they were looking for.
I was saying, it's like Clyde all over again.
Exactly. But yeah, no, I have him going to Dallas in the second round. For the longest time, I thought Genty would be a lock for them at 12, but clearly that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So Dallas is in desperate need of a running game. And to be able to get a talent like Henderson in the second round would be awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. Next one we have is Quinshon Judkins. We're both together on this one. We have him going to L.A.
Why do you perfect spot?
Why do you have him at L.A., Will?
I mean, they pick late enough in the second. So I also want to say this: we did our rookie profiles and we have our rankings, and I have Judkins as the second running back in this class.
Yep.
But I also have to respect the people who know a lot more than I do,
of course,
and where they're being drafted in these mocks. So like obviously, I just said I would have Henderson drafted above Judkins. I said I would have Hampton drafted above Judkins,
right?
Based on this episode. So
yeah, you have to take in what the NFL gives you. If the NFL is telling you that like Hampton and Henderson are first round talents, you have to bet on that, because we've talked about the data of first round running back talents that are able to break out and become even better for your team. Not to say that Judkins couldn't in the second round, but you stick with history, and what history tells us is that first round running backs are a better bet. You take the bet on those.
Exactly. So the reason why I have LA, they pick late enough in the second round, and a lot of the teams ahead of them, like so Denver would pick above them. I think at that point they already take their running back. Vegas and Chicago are in here a couple times. One of those definitely gets a running back.
What about Dallas at 44?
Dallas at 40. Like, listen, that's what I mean. Like, the reason why I don't have Dallas taking Judkins is because of how frequently I've seen Henderson going above Judkins in mock drafts.
Yep.
And so I think the Chargers with 22, if they don't get Hampton, I think it's a receiver. I've seen a lot of Matthew Golden. Your guy.
That'd be poetic justice for me.
But I think LA has to come out of this draft with a running back, and because they gave Najee money, they don't necessarily have to take the first one that they see.
No.
And I think they can kind of sit back a little bit, and let's say they love a couple of different guys, they can let the other teams decide for them.
Right.
And then sitting at that the second third of the second round, I think Judkins is a great spot for him.
It's true. The other thing I'm looking on Tankathon too, like where all the picks are, and I don't mean to go off the beaten path. I did not realize that Chicago has 2 picks early in the second round.
I saw this last night, and I was like, yeah, there's a reason why I like Chicago so much.
Yeah, and I don't know if they take Genty at 10 now. I'm second guessing that one, but yes, I agree with you.
Because he's gonna be gone at 6.
Right. We talked about Quinshon Judkins. He was my number 3. He was, the whole knock on him prior to the combine was that he was slow, plodding, kind of running back, and then he goes to the combine and runs
eat my 4.48.
Yeah, and runs a 4.48. Loved everything that I saw on film. I think he is of Hampton and Genty, like in that same category of a true 3-down back. I think Henderson could, but that's not his primary skill set. I want good draft capital for him, especially for our upcoming rookie drafts. So,
and another reason why I like him to the Chargers, he just fits that bill so well.
Yes.
For Harbaugh. Like, he's a bruiser, a bigger guy, can eat contact, and like you said, can be a 3-down guy. Right.
Next running back, we're going to round it out with the big 5 that we've been talking about all year, is Caleb Johnson. I have him going to Cleveland, and this is in a scenario where Cleveland still has the actually no, I think he slides. I think it's in the third round, pick 67, where we see him go. Do I see him going earlier? 100%. But if Cleveland doesn't make any moves and he is the running back, I would take it. I would think he's ahead of Ford and Pierre Strong is the other guy who's there. I would definitely want Caleb Johnson, and that would be an interesting spot for him to go.
Yeah, Cleveland's a good spot. They definitely need some running back help. Ford's not the guy. He's had plenty of opportunities to be that one, and he has some flashes, but it's just not enough to be like convinced that you can keep rolling with this guy as your one. So Cleveland's definitely gonna be another team that comes out of this draft with a running back. At least I think they should.
Needs to. But where do you have Johnson going?
I've got him to New England in the third. They have the 69th pick. I just think it makes too much sense. I'm out on Ramondre Stevenson. He had a couple nice flashes, last year, or excuse me, not last year, the year before, where I was kind of like, oh, this could be a future piece for them. They can, hold on to him for a little bit. But I think after last year, the fumbling's an issue. I believe he dealt with injuries as well. And if Antonio Gibson is taking touches from you, I think that's how it's time.
It's time to
move on. So I just think Caleb Johnson would be a great pick for New England. When it comes to Caleb, like he's a younger prospect, so you can get some extra years out of him.
100%.
When you think about like the lifespan of a running back in the NFL, at least on average. But he ran for 1,500 yards in the Big Ten. Great size. He's a little bit slower, or at least his 40 time says he's a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But when it comes to game speed, I think he absolutely has it.
I was gonna say I didn't realize this from Caleb Johnson, but I think people were saying that he in game was getting up to like 22 miles per hour, like when running. So
yeah, I take
like
that.
The combine was such a big hit for him because it was like, we're watching the game film and this guy's like has an amazing speed, and then he goes to the combine, runs like a 4.5, I think is what he ran.
It was a 4.57.
4.57, right? Almost a 4.6. So that definitely hurt him. But who knows? Maybe someone like New England or Cleveland gets great value for him in the third round, and he turns into something.
Yeah, he's a big guy who can run between the tackles.
The only thing that I don't like about him though is, and I don't know if you saw this when you're watching the film, is like he's a big dude, like, but he didn't play big. You know what I mean? Like the guys who they're big and they play big, like Hampton. Like Hampton plays big.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Yep.
But like there were times where like Johnson, like he's a big dude, but would easily get like taken down or like not run over. But you know what I mean? Like it was like you got size, buddy. Like use it.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say real quick for him going to New England is he wasn't the greatest blocker, but the effort was there. And New England needs that so bad. Like they need to help Drake May in any way possible. So I just think there's just so many check marks that he's hitting that New England it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. Moving into receiver, we're going to talk about Tetaroa McMillan. Wu and I have him in the same spot going to Carolina. You have him going 8 to Carolina, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because the thing we were talking about this pre-show is the slide of McMillan, and I don't understand it right now because he's been a locked like top 5 pick before, and now it's like after I think it was after his pro day where people were really starting to take him off or not take him off, but slide him down the board because he ran like a 4.5, and it's like I don't understand. I don't understand. I think 8 is a perfect spot, for Carolina to take Tetaroa McMillan. You give an alpha wide receiver paired up with Bryce Young, who's starting to show promise finally, and you want to reward that with an alpha dog wide receiver. And I think the other pieces around complement well. You have McMillan on one side, you run Thielen in the slot, and then Leggett in year 2. Like then and then who's the tight end that Carolina has?
Jatavion Sanders on my taxi squad.
Yeah, but like listen, like I'm not saying like they're gonna light the world on fire, but like it's an interesting offense.
You raise your eyebrows at it.
Absolutely. But tell me why you were feeling Carolina, Will.
Yeah, I just you got to give your young quarterback weapons. The receiver room is Adam Thielen, I don't even know how many more snaps he's got, as an NFL guy. So go get him a big target that he can throw the ball up to, and there's a good chance that he's coming down with it. The only thing that's concerning me with, even though I really think he should go to Carolina and it would be a great pick for them, I've seen a lot of mocks where they're going the defensive side of the ball at 8, which I get. It makes sense. It's they need help on that side of the ball. And I was listening to a podcast today with Daniel Jeremiah and Todd McShay, and they were saying the earliest that they've even heard him going is 12 at Dallas. So that's 4 picks behind, where we have him going. And that's them saying, that's the earliest that McMillan can go. So I've seen him slide a lot. I just think Carolina, you want to help out your young quarterback, give him a big target. He's got good hands. He can beat you downfield.
Yeah.
It's just Carolina, do the right thing.
Yeah, it just seems like a no-brainer, like especially with Canales being there, and Canales was a part of the Baker Mayfield revival, and what made Baker Mayfield so relevant was having someone like Mike Evans,
Yes.
Who is the comp for McMillan, like this entire, like it's London and it's Evans, like wouldn't you want to just recreate what brought you so much success when you were in Tampa Bay? I don't know. I just sit here and talk about it on a podcast.
One of the big knocks I've heard on McMillan is like his lack of effort. Listen,
I don't believe that.
We all know he played at Arizona in 23. He's a part of, a complete 180 that program takes. They have a very good year. And then this year, the wheels kind of fall off. Listen, I'd be frustrated too if I played receiver at Arizona last year.
We still had 1,300 yards. Like I
it's
don't
just
get
that
it.
time of the year where everybody's poking holes just to get a story out.
Yeah, because you saw the story about him like not watching film, or like he was in an interview about not watching film or anything like that. First of all, 2 things. Number one, that was a year ago. Like it wasn't even like currently during this draft cycle. It was a year ago. And then secondly, if it plays the rest of it, he says he gets a lot more of watching film with his teammates and able to bounce ideas off of them and things like that. So like, I don't know. Treat him appropriately.
It's poking hole season. That's all it is.
Yeah. All right. Next wide receiver we're going to talk about. We got to talk about the guy, Travis Hunter. Like I said, before, like he's the biggest question mark of where he goes, but or what he does. I'm sorry, but I don't think there's any question between you and I where he goes.
Nope.
We have him at Cleveland, and you have him as number 2 going to Cleveland,
I do.
right? Yeah. There's no way this guy makes it out of the first 5 picks of this NFL draft.
Nope.
Maybe even the first 4 picks.
First 3.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he's so talented. The only thing that I want is I just want a team to play him full-time receiver, because if he plays full-time receiver, that just makes this draft class even more special.
Real quick before I get into why I have Hunter going to Cleveland, not fantasy related. Do you have an issue with how soon Colorado is retiring Travis Hunter?
Oh my God, I saw that.
Jerseys? I meant to bring it up when we talked about Shador.
I was so mad.
You were mad at that. Okay.
Because the other thing too is that I want to say, and I'm taking this off of what I saw off of like Twitter and Instagram. They were all only like 1-8 or in the Big 12 or something, or 2-8 in the Big 12.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, I'll try to pull it up right now.
The biggest uproar I saw was they won a national title in like the 90s or the 80s.
Yes,
and none of those guys got a jersey retired. Listen, I get they come with Dion and they turn that program around. I think,
Dion definitely was like, you need to retire, these jerseys
for sure. And I think I heard that Shador has broken a ton of school records, and I'm sure he has. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but you're gonna tell me no one in Colorado history can wear number 2 and number 12 again just because of these guys?
You're out of your mind.
I actually,
they never won a bowl
Let me
game.
put it to you this way: I'm not mad they retired the jersey, but why are they doing it before they even get drafted in the NFL?
Correct.
Like, why can't you wait like 10 years?
Right. Or you don't even have to wait 10. Wait 5. You know what I mean?
Because
like,
what if they like burn out bad in the NFL? It's like,
we
retired. Like, or they retire the jerseys, Dion leaves, and then they unretire. Can you even do that?
That'd be hilarious. I would actually love to see that.
I think it's too soon.
I can't see what their record was in the Big 12, but it wasn't great, and they've never won a bowl game. There, like they lost the Alamo Bowl, the one year that they were there. So like,
and I don't think
are they amazing?
Travis Hunter played in the
I don't
bowl
think
game.
he did either. Yeah. Are they amazing players? 100%.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah, it's crazy.
You're not going to retire. You don't retire those jerseys.
Yeah.
Anyways, so back to Hunter. We have them both going to Cleveland at 2. What was your thought process on that, Will?
Let me complete my vision here. Cleveland takes Travis Hunter at 2, trade back into the first, get Shador Sanders. I'm not saying they're going to be Burrow and Chase, but clearly it helped when you give Burrow a wide receiver that he's comfortable with. And I think it would be great marketing for Cleveland. If you're thinking about ticket sales and revenue as a franchise, like I think this would be a great opportunity for that. It would be very exciting. People would want to be at the games, no matter whether you're good or bad. But when it comes to the talent, I mean, there's only so many things you can say about Travis Hunter. He's a freak athlete, and I'm just really excited to. I want just give him a chance to play both sides of the ball. If he's wrong about himself, then he's wrong.
Sure.
And you make him pick one, but let him see that in the NFL. And if he proves you wrong, you gotta let him.
You gotta let him cook. You know, do you think, you know, with this combination of Shedeur and Hunter together, is this it? Is this the quarterback that breaks the curse for the Cleveland Browns, or are they going to be, you know, kicking, you know, doing this again, you know, 3 years later?
Well, first off, they shouldn't have dumped Baker Mayfield. That was a major mistake, and I hope they're mad at themselves.
They should be.
This would just be a nice way to say, hey guys, we screwed up with Deshaun Watson. Now here's an exciting duo of Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter.
Yes,
please forgive us.
Yep. So we'll see. All right, next one on the list, number one in Woo's heart, Luther Burden the third. Woo, where do you have Luther Burden going?
I have him going to the Titans in the second round. More realistically, I think he should be a first round pick. And if I were to give him a first round destination,
Mel Kiper doesn't though.
Mel Kiper, Aaron Rodgers, jail. I think if I were to give him a first round destination, it would be the Washington Commanders. You know, Terry's.
You think so? With Debo and Terry?
Debo, I'm so out on Debo.
Okay.
I don't buy any of the hype. And because he's Debo Jr., if anything, it makes it even better destination. Learn from who you are, pretty much. And Terry McLaurin's 30?
Going to be 30, yeah.
So, you know, based on our last episode, if we're following the numbers, he's got 2 more years before, you know, that percentage of fall off rate.
And he's in the last year of his contract next year, unless they sign him to an extension during this year.
Yeah, and it'd just be, you know, anybody with Jaden Daniels would be fantastic. Luther Burden could finally get the ball past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
But, you know, my more realistic spot is Tennessee in the second round. Give Cam Ward somebody else
that'd be
to throw the ball to. Just help out your young quarterback, because we all know that's where Cam Ward is going. But yeah, Luther Burden, he's probably in mocks I've seen him as like the 4th receiver off the board, which is it's crazy. But
criminal.
Listen, not everybody can be on the right side of history, so it's lonely over here. But you know,
we'll be seeing you on the other side is what that means.
Yeah.
My pick, I can't believe you didn't have this. I
saw it and I was like, damn.
It makes so much sense.
I know.
Let me just set the scene for you.
Okay, hit me.
Do I have
Don't
it
get
up?
me too excited though.
Listen, have you looked at the depth chart for the New York Football Jets?
Yeah, and their second best receiver is a punt returner.
Yes, or I guess so. But anyways, you know, 19% of the targets have been vacated with Devontae Adams. I think it's a no-brainer that you put someone in the slot, so then, you know, Garrett Wilson can play on the outside, and then now Fields has, because I have him going at 42 to the Jets. Now let's just say in some, you know, crazy alternate reality, the Jets do take Warren at 7. You're telling me that Justin Fields has Garrett Wilson, Tyler Warren, and Luther Burden to throw the ball to? That would be insane. Fun. You know what I mean? And who knows? Maybe that is enough to take the pressure off of Breece Hall, and Breece Hall becomes relevant again. And you know, what do you mean?
Breece Hall's been relevant.
Not last year. Listen, I love him just as much as you do, and he had an awful year. But listen. 42, I think it's a no-brainer. I think people are sleeping on Burden, and I think
keep sleeping.
I was going to say he's going to fall into the Jets' lap at 42.
I love that,
and they're going to have something phenomenal on their hands.
Listen, we're going to be on live stream. I'm going to have to behave myself if that pick happens.
It's going to be insane. I can't wait now. All right, we're moving on to our next wide receiver, Mr. Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I went spicy here. I have him going to the Dallas Cowboys. I've
seen that. I like that.
I think he's going to be a first-round pick.
Oh,
I do.
At 12?
I think so. I think Dallas is going to fall in love with him as being like a pro-ready receiver. The only thing that could be an issue is that, you know, he plays primarily slot. CD plays a lot of slot, but I think we talked about how, you know, Ohio State they always get their receivers ready, you know, the most pro-ready receiver. I think he's the most pro-ready receiver in this draft, you know, and if you can move him around the field along with, you know, Lamb around the field, he just fills the spot that Brandon Cooks just left. Dak's healthy and he has 2 options to throw to. You know, I think that's a dangerous combo. But I do think at 12, I think that the NFL is going to value a receiver being a pro-ready receiver, and I think like they're going to make a splash here.
I like that. I respect that take.
Where do you have Emeka Ibuka going?
I got him going to Vegas in the second round. Vegas picks pretty soon in that second round. They got Jacoby Myers. Okay, like they need another receiver. They need to bring some youth into there. Obviously Brock Bowers is fantastic. Give Geno a chance.
Would that make you nervous for Bowers if
no,
they win?
No way. I just say Brock Bowers is that guy. Like, he's got to be your number one target regardless of who you draft. Even if they took like McMillan at 6, that doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Vegas would be a great spot. Outside of Jacoby Myers, I couldn't even tell you another receiver on Vegas. So I just think at some point Vegas will be taking a receiver. I think Ibuka is sitting there for them early in the second round. Like we've mentioned, he's the most pro-ready guy out of all of these receivers.
Yep.
The route tree isn't insane, but the routes that he can run are just so crisp.
And it's the familiar. Can't even speak right now.
Yeah.
But Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator is there, so there's a correlation. With that there. I like that pick. That pick's good. It's time. We got to talk about Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden. I have you going to the second round with the Tennessee Titans. I think the talk of Matthew Golden being a first round pick has now officially kind of like cooled down. I don't think the NFL is truly in on Matthew Golden. I think what's going to end up happening is he's going to slide. Tennessee's going to see him at 35 and think they have a first round wide receiver on their hands, and they're going to pull the trigger to pair Matthew Golden with Cam Ward. Does it work? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I've said in the past, he's the biggest question mark of this draft. I would love for him to, turn it around, not turn it around, but establish himself as a legit number one wide receiver, because that's just another opportunity in fantasy football to bring fantasy value. So that's my hope. I don't know. But where do you have him going, Will?
I got him going to the Chargers. I still think he's going to be a first round pick, to be honest. I've just seen a lot of hype around that.
So you think the Chargers take him at 22?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Well, because I think I don't think Hampton's going to be sitting there. And even if he slips to Pittsburgh, like I just if there is going to be a pick instead of Golden in the first, I think it's going to be running back for the Chargers, and I just don't think that I think Hampton's going to be gone before that. So that's why I have Golden going to the Chargers. At some point, the Chargers will be taking a wide receiver. Listen, I don't know. There are names that I like more than Golden. But I've seen his name enough in the first round to where I have to say, like, okay, I think this guy's going to be a first-round pick. And I think he'd be great next to Ladd McConkey. I just think it's a perfect fit.
Yeah. I mean, listen, fastest guy in the draft, 5'11", 190. There's positives. He had 9 touchdowns, his final season. But there are the negatives of he's never had 1,000 yards. Yards per route run is
he could have a lot more than 1,000 yards with Justin Herbert.
Correct, he could. But he is someone who scares me.
I don't know. I just think McConkey, controlling the middle of the field, Golden stretching it deep. I think it would be just like the Mike Williams role. I think that would be perfect for him.
It'd be different though if we're talking Golden's like 6'2", 6'3", running in that, you know what I mean? I don't know, 5'10" can, you're stretching the field, but one of the big problems that I've talked about before, does he separate? His separation was kind of tough, but we'll see. We're gonna move into our last wide receiver. This is kind of segueing into why I think this one works better is Trey Harris. I have Trey Harris going to the Los Angeles Chargers. I think he is someone who fits that scheme better. I think he's someone is essentially Mike Williams 2.0.
Yeah.
The size is there. His pro day definitely hurt him. I think he ran, or the combine hurt him. I think he ran like a 4.54, something like that. But he is the prototypical player that I think the Chargers would want in their offense, because you have McConkey, who's your speedster, does everything across the middle, and Trey Harris is your person who's going to stretch down the field. And who to learn better for Trey Harris is than Mike Williams, who's Mr. 50-50 ball,
Yep.
and take a year learning under him, taking a back seat. And then I think, we always talk about wide receivers taking that step in year 2. Trey Harris is someone who might take that step in year 2 and be, a fantasy stud. I don't know. But I'd be so over the moon if he went to the Chargers.
So you think that would be like third round? Because I think he's going to be a later pick.
He's definitely going to be a later pick. it would have to be third round. I think it'd have to be pick 86 unless they make a trade up to get him. And the Chargers have made trades up to get wide receivers before. They did it last year with McConkey. Eat your heart out, New England. You got fleeced on that one. But they might sit back at 86 and take him too. Who knows? I know they have a lot of picks, more than normal. They've gotten a lot of picks from the compensatory system, however that works out. So who knows? Maybe they package a couple of those to move up in the third or the end of the second to get him.
Okay. Well, the Chargers aren't going to be able to sit there at 86 and take him because the New York Jets are going to take him at 73.
Wow.
They need another pass catcher so bad. There's a ton of names that I love in this draft for them. But if I'm seeing these mock drafts correctly and seeing the different spots where people are, who the Jets are taking at 7, because I think whoever they take at 7 is going to determine, the rest of their draft. The popular name I've been seeing as of late is the tackle out of Missouri. Yeah. And I've even seen reports that if he's not sitting there at 7, like they're going to, think about trading out of that pick and moving back. I've heard the Ashton Genty stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. No. Even if he's sitting there, I don't think they take him.
I think really for the Jets at 7, it's Membu from Missouri or it's Warren.
Yep,
and if neither of them are available or there, I agree with you. I see them moving back.
So Warren is the other name that if he's sitting there, I think they should absolutely take him. But going back to Trey Harris, like they need another pass catcher, and if Warren isn't somebody that they're taking, they have to take one of these receivers at some point. Yep. I think Trey Harris is deep enough into the draft where, I don't know a ton of the other names in the third round, but he's a project, but the upside that you can kind of see in him, the flashes that he gives you, the way he's able to separate downfield, and he can slowly work into an NFL role because you already have a Garrett Wilson, you have a Breece Hall who can help your quarterback out a little bit. I just think the transition piece would be a great spot for the Jets.
Yeah, I would agree. The only thing that concerns me is, obviously Justin Fields. Is he someone who can consistently get Trey Harris the ball down the field? And obviously Trey Harris can run more routes, but we're talking about him with the expectation of he's going to be running a little bit more deeper routes. And I question, does Justin Fields able to get him the ball, and does that then create problems and things like that? We'd have to wait and see. Yeah. So it looks like we have a Trey Harris off.
We do.
Me versus you. We'll see who wins come draft day.
Who's arrested by the other person in the jersey.
All right, I like that. Last position group that we're going to get into is the tight end group. So, we got to start with Mr. Tyler Warren at, first tight end off the board. Wu, you have him going to Chicago. Is that at number 10?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. Why do you have him going at 10 to Chicago?
This is under the impression that Genty goes at 6. Okay. Because I do think if Genty is sitting there at 10, the Bears smash that pick without thinking twice about it. So this is under the impression, and also if the Jets don't take him at 7, because I think that's the other spot for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Chicago is sitting there at 10, and they can get Tyler Warren, I just think Tyler Warren, like this draft is so weird because you think of not even just first round or not even just early first round picks, but first round picks in general. You're thinking about your quarterback, thinking about offensive tackle. Defensive end, those like pieces that you can build a franchise around, those blue chip pieces. And then you have your running backs and your tight ends, your linebackers, safeties, those other pieces that kind of come, right, day 2, day 3. But this draft, the quarterbacks really aren't there. The tackles are there, but then after the first round, it really drops. Yep. And so I just think like you're going to see a lot of tight ends taken early. You're going to see a lot of running backs taken early compared to what we've seen in other years. So for Warren, like if you like last year or, in years prior where you have those other positions that are at such a higher level than the tight end, there's no way Tyler Warren's going in the top 10. But because of the way this draft is set up, at some point he's going to be the best player available. And it's like you'd be a fool not to take him. So I think Chicago's in that spot. His offensive game is insane, but I think the piece that really sticks out to me specifically for Chicago is his blocking ability, how creative they can get with him. I think Ben Johnson would have a field day, throwing Tyler Warren out in all these different packages. And because of his pass protection, it would help Caleb Williams a ton.
Oh, absolutely. I have him going. I wouldn't chalk here. I have him going 14 to Indianapolis.
Doesn't it feel like the Colts take a tight end in the first round every single year?
They do.
I swear. I know they don't, but that's just how it feels.
And I think it's such a popular pick. Do I like the pick?
I was gonna say, I really hope he doesn't go into
I don't, because I don't trust either of the quarterbacks that are there.
No.
But they have such a need at tight end that you don't pass them up at 14. And I think what will happen, and in my scenario, this is with Genti going 10 to Chicago, and the Jets taking a tackle at 7. So I think that pushes him down the list, and then you go in between from 10 to 14. I don't think San Fran has Kittle. They're not going to go for it. I think Dallas is looking receiver to boost up the offense rather than going Warren. Miami, they just had Jonnu with a tight end 4 season. I don't think they move that way. And then next one you have on the list is Indy. Like
at some point he's going to get taken.
He's got to get taken, and it just fits the need. Do any of these teams say we don't care who we have, we're just going to take them? Absolutely, sure, they could do that. And the other one that is nervous to me, but because of the recent news, I don't think it's going to happen anymore, was New Orleans. I was afraid that New Orleans would actually take him at 9, to pair him with Jawan Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
That was under the assumption that Derek Carr was still healthy, but I think Carr not being healthy really kind of changes how they draft. Like they have to blow up they have to blow up their entire plan and do something different. So that's why I think Indy is the spot for him. And listen, if he goes to Indy, do you still take him in rookie drafts in that 107 or 106, 108 range?
It's so tough because his tape is ridiculous.
It's insane.
But it's just like if it was anybody but Anthony Richardson, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm taking him regardless. But
so you think he slides then if he goes to Indy at 14?
I don't know if he slides, but just the pick doesn't become as easy as it was.
Sure,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting there, depending on how much time I have for that pick, like I'm probably using that whole time.
Yeah,
like considering what to do.
So we'll take my draft scenario into consideration. So Warren goes 14 to Indianapolis. Emeka Ibuka goes 12 to Dallas. Do you take Ibuka over Warren in that draft?
See, this is what I mean. Like, if I have 24 hours for the pick, I'm taking the 24 hours.
Right.
Because of the tape, I think I would lean Warren and probably end up taking him, but it's just the situation would be so frustrating.
Okay.
But maybe Warren's the piece that turns it around for Richardson
that he needs. You never know. But we'll see. So moving into our next tight end, we have Colston Loveland. We were sitting here. You were talking about how the Chargers have to take if they don't go running back, they have to take wide receiver. I disagree. I think if Colston Loveland is here at 22, I think it's a smash, and they would love that pick. Of obvious reasons, there's a need at tight end. Their best receiver, or best tight end on the roster right now is Tyler Conklin.
Don't sleep on Tyler Conklin.
I might be sleeping. You also have the Michigan connection with Harbaugh in Loveland, and I think so many people have now just put Loveland into the like joker slot tight end role that Evan Ingram has, and they totally forget about the national championship tape where Loveland played inline on the line, and he was hurt all last year. And he was still flashing on film. I think he goes to LA and is just such a valuable asset for Justin Herbert, and really it makes them that more dynamic on offense, because let's be honest, the Chargers are not a team that are going to be high flying and throw the ball 30 times, 40 times a game. But if you add a piece like Loveland, where you hand the ball off and then you just quick play action and Loveland's down the middle, like he will essentially be their Mark Andrews, a la to the Baltimore Ravens system. And I think that's a smash pick at 22.
I think the Michigan connection is huge.
Yes,
like that's going to be a massive part of that pick if that is what happens.
Correct.
I have him going 18 to Seattle.
18. So you
just
think
a
he
few
goes
spots
before?
ahead. I do. I definitely think he's a first round guy. Seattle, for God knows what reason, invests all this money in Sam Darnold with nothing around him. You need another pass catcher. I like JSN, but we haven't seen him be the guy yet.
Yep.
So to mitigate some risk, go get Colson Loveland. Add another weapon to your offense, like you just mentioned, the play action. You've got a dog in Kenneth Walker.
Absolutely.
So that play action will absolutely be there. They're gonna have to sell out on Kenneth Walker on a couple of these plays. Going back to just my thoughts from film, like his route running is insane. He can not only make linebackers miss, but he can also make defensive backs miss. His hands are great. He's got magnets for hands. He's got the yards after the catch. Like I just think there's so many reasons for Seattle to have to take him. Would they give Darnold 3-4 years?
I think it was 3 years.
So he's going to be there
3
for
years,
a while.
but I think it was weirdly set up where like if he doesn't do well this year, they can get out like right away.
That might change things. But still, I still think Loveland. It's Seattle needs the help on offense.
Yeah, I think in my grandmaster plan of Colson Loveland to the Chargers, the two teams that scare the daylights out of me are the Jets at 7 for taking Warren, and I think it's Seattle at 18. I think if the Jets don't take Warren at 7, then they definitely take Indy takes him at 14, and then you just hope that Seattle they pass on him and they go like edge or something like that. But we'll have to see. 3 more tight ends that we have, and then we're going to wrap it up. Next one we have is Harold Fanning Jr. Harold Fanning, have him going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They just got rid of Evan Ingram, and I think they need a dynamic tight end that's going to be a reliable asset for Trevor Lawrence.
Gives me Ingram vibes.
He kind of does, right? And you look at the depth chart. I just had it up. I think it's they signed Johnny Mundt from Minnesota, and then they still had Brenton Strange on the roster. And all those guys are just inline blockers, and that's we were talking on the tight end show. Harold Fanning needs a place where there's blockers established, and he doesn't have to block, and you just set him up in the slot and you just let him go to work. And I think Jacksonville is a great place for him to do that. I think that they would take him. I think, where did I have it?
They got pick 88 in round 3.
Yeah,
that might be a little early.
Yeah, it might be pick 88. I was thinking
but
70.
They pick early in the 4th. They got 107.
Yeah, depending on how the tight end landscape goes, I think pick 88 is my hope. I wouldn't be mad with 107. But if he goes at pick 88, that tells me that they have a plan for him.
Yep.
And Fanning would be someone that I'm willing to draft. But where do you have him?
I've got him going to the Rams because they have 2 picks in the 3rd round, and God, could you imagine him in a Sean McVay offense?
Oh my God!
He'd
do damage.
That's what I'm saying. I just think the situation would be perfect. They have the opportunity. They have 2 opportunities to take him in that 3rd round, where you can be confident, that they have a plan for this guy, and the draft capital backs that up. When we were going through the Fannin tape, like, Bowling Green, Maction, blah blah, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
But then he plays at Texas A&M and at Penn State, and he dogs them. And you're like, wait a minute, like, okay, I got to start paying attention to this guy.
Yep.
So just the numbers that he put up at Bowling Green: 117 receptions, 1,500 yards. He led the class in touchdowns. Like, that's not a mistake. Like that doesn't happen by accident. It's very situation dependent, and that's why I love him in a Sean McVay offense. I would be probably drafting him a lot sooner than most people would be if he's a Los Angeles Ram.
I get that. I respect that. Do you think he is able to surpass why am I blanking on Tyler Higbee?
Oh yeah.
You think he would be able to surpass Tyler Higbee?
For sure.
For some reason I just feel like McVay has like some insane love. Like you know how like those coaches have loves for those players?
I get that.
I think he loves Tyler Higbee.
I think if there's any tight end that he could beat out, it's Higbee. I would put it to you that way.
Yeah. I mean, and there's opportunity. I mean, it's Higbee, Parkinson, and some dude named Davis Allen. So, the opportunity is 100% there.
Yep.
Next one we have is Mason Taylor.
He's getting a lot of buzz.
He is getting a lot of buzz. Before I put this pick in, I didn't realize it until we talked that he was actually getting a lot of potential first round buzz, which is kind of nuts to me.
I never would have guessed that.
I like Taylor. I don't put him in the same category as Fannin or Loveland or Warren, but who knows? The NFL does some crazy things sometimes, and they make us, have to believe in some players. I have him going to the Denver Broncos. In my idea. I think the Denver Broncos, take a running back. I think they take Hampton at 20, and then I see him going in the third round, maybe at like pick 85 for them. Does he go at 51 because of this buzz? Sure, maybe that they pull trigger on it early, but I think he's in a third, fourth round selection with Denver.
Yeah, I also would have him probably as a third round pick, but I have him going to the Giants. And because of this buzz, I think it works even, it still works for the Giants because
Sure.
they have the first pick in the third round and they have the second pick in the second round. So they have two chances to go get that guy.
You think they would take him either at 34 or 65?
I do.
Really? Okay.
Because of the buzz. Like I don't know if the first round. I don't think the first round is
but the buzz is really like
the only
what
thing
he
is
was,
though
his father was a Hall of Fame defensive
NFL
end.
pedigree's
you know
there.
What I mean? Like, does NFL pedigree really like hold that much weight though? You know what I mean?
I don't know. It might.
Who knows? Like the NFL will tell us. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
That's all right. Because but with that first round buzz, a team that I'm looking at right now is Philly with the last pick in the first round.
Yeah, that's the one I've been hearing too.
Because they just came out and said today that Goddard could be on the block. Come draft time.
Nobody wants Goddard.
Yeah, I guess not. So that could be if he's gonna get taken in the first round, I think that would spot it would be. But
yeah, I think Philly's in such a like interesting place though, where they could literally go anywhere because they're pretty much set in every single position.
I wonder what that's like.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I would love to be in that position, but they could literally just like close their eyes and throw a dart on the dartboard on what like position they want to address. So, I could see him going 32 to Philly too.
Yeah, but when it comes to the Giants, the stat sheet for him at LSU didn't blow you away. But I think he's one of the more polished tight ends from the class. Really great blocker. The route running was smooth. It's not necessarily choppy. Uses his hands a lot. The contested catchability is there. Can make him a good red zone target. And can just be another guy who can sit 5 yards past the line of scrimmage and help out a quarterback. Yep. Whenever they decide to move on from Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, so he can help out a young quarterback there. And I just think the youth and the athleticism, it's just something that you can build off of. And I think Dable would get every ounce out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Last tight end to round out our draft day predictions, we have Gunnar Helm. We're on the same wavelength. We have him going to the Jets. Where were you specifically having him going to the Jets? Because I had him at 110 in the fourth. For him to, I guess I did this in the mindset of for him to be relevant fantasy wise.
It's got to be.
I'd hope it'd be like the fourth at 110, or maybe I think if it's after that at like 145 or 186, they have a 162. But I think if it's after the fourth, it doesn't matter to me. But I think they are going to 100% invest in a tight end, because the number one tight end on their depth chart right now is Jeremy Rucker. And you can't go into the season.
Long Island kid though.
Yeah. Where do you go? OSU?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. Whatever. Long Island kid, local kid. You don't let him go into as your starter going into the year.
Yeah, they've barely given him a chance, and I feel bad. But I got Helm to the Jets. It's got to be in the fourth round for him to be fantasy relevant. Yep. But I do think even if it's not in the fourth round, I think at some point he will be a Jet. This is all depending if they don't go Warren at 7, but I don't think they do. The Jets, plain and simple, need another pass catcher. There was nothing for Gunnar Helm when I was watching the film that I'm like, wow, look at this guy. Look at what he can do. No. There wasn't one thing that kind of jumped off the page, but everything else was kind of like, all right, you can work with that. There's something here, that can translate to the NFL. He just doesn't have that one specialty where you're like, wow, need that guy really bad. But I just think that well-rounded, solidified skill set that you can kind of just put him out there and be like, confident that he can help out your offense.
No, I was just looking back at my notes for Helm, and he was sloppy, had a lot of bad penalties, but he did flash on tape.
Oh, he'd fit perfect with the Jets.
But I think with someone like Glenn being the head coach, though, I think he is going to be able to coach these guys up and make sure that they don't make bad mistakes. Yeah. And that might be a good fit for Gunnar Helm. You never know.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Those are our draft day predictions. Let us know if we were 100% correct, because You know I am. I'm going to be. So we'll see. But again, just a quick reminder, if you want to watch the draft with us, we will be live streaming the draft on Thursday, tomorrow. So make sure you hop on in. Draft's going to be at 8 o'clock. Come see us, lose our mind getting all these picks right.
Yeah.
But make sure you're following us on all of our socials at Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy. YouTube, make sure you give us a like, subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're giving us a rating. Let's get ready for this draft day. You know what I mean? I'm ready. But we'll see you on the other side.
See you.